Irise is an organisation dedicated to empowering people through period equality. We were started in response to the voices of girls expressing the challenges they face during their periods. We did a piece of work in East Africa asking girls what's stopping them being in school, and we found that periods came up as a really unexpected theme. At the time, this is nearly a decade ago, the issue was really overlooked and neglected. There was very little work out there about how to support these girls. And so Irise was set up collaboratively between women in the UK and East Africa, working together to try and find a solution for these girls. Over the sort of the last few years, we've actually realised that girls in the UK face similar challenges, and that actually the issue affects a diverse range of genders and is much more complex and nuanced than we first thought. And so we've expanded our work to include the UK, and we're actually working in partnership with our East African team to transfer learning across cultures, work together to really kind of end period shame and period poverty for everybody. And I think that the key pillars of our approach are really around evidence and empowerment. So we've always, I think when an issue is neglected, when it's overlooked, you've got to take a case to people in power, you've got to get them to listen, and actually evidence, both in terms of robust kind of quantitative data and also the stories and experiences of people affected, can really help to catalyse the kind of policy and practice change that Irise drives forward. And then the other pillar is empowerment, and I think the leadership of people affected by the issue has always been at the heart of our work, and particularly young women. We see young women as a really important group to invest in, because we think that their leadership could be transformative of the status quo of the current system, and actually that they could build a much more inclusive and diverse leadership table and society for everybody. So those two pillars, evidence and empowerment, are at the heart of Irise and what we stand for. Irise is a network of people who are passionate about realising period equality, but also passionate about evidence and this idea of empowering people who are marginalised and excluded from leadership, from decision making, empowering them to lead. And I think if we look at the issue of period shame and period poverty, like the reason that even in the 21st century an intrinsic part of being female is a cause for exclusion and discrimination, the reason for that is that actually the current leadership table is dominated by particular privileged groups, and actually those groups, they make decisions based on their own experience, and they understand people who are like them, and that's not their fault. If you look at the playground, children are even more likely to make friends with a child wearing the same colour t-shirt. So I think as humans we gravitate towards people like us, but actually when your leadership table is dominated by one group, that group builds a system that only delivers for them, and actually we need to create diverse leadership in order to build a system that delivers for everyone. And I think if you look globally, the current system isn't working, it's broken. I think we face unprecedented challenges with climate change, and this endless pursuit of growth that we've kind of embraced. It's not working, the system's broken, we need change, and I think the answer, the catalyst for that change, is diverse leadership, and I think that can be led by young women, because they're one of the largest disadvantaged groups in the world. They know the system doesn't work. They see every day the kind of the disadvantages it creates for them. And I think actually they can use that experience to build a better system. They can use that to change the status quo for everybody. As young women, you face a constant barrage of messaging about how the reason there aren't enough young women in leadership is because of you're not confident enough. I think there's a book I read where it's got a list of all the different ways that young women, all the things young women are doing wrong that mean that they can't lead. And I think we've got to, this is the story of the patriarchy kind of coming out, even in the debate about women's leadership. Actually, it's women's problem. It's women's fault that they get raped. It's women's fault that they can't lead. It's always women's fault. And actually, women are ready to lead. I work with fantastic women leaders across Irise in East Africa and in the UK with young women who have overcome massive challenges to lead. Like, women leaders are there, and actually the reason they struggle is because the system wasn't built for them. And actually this constant barrage of messaging that you need to change yourself is a massive distraction. Like, don't change yourself, change the system. The system's broken, we need to step out of that system. We need to build something better that enables everybody who has a vision, who has a stake in the future and a view for how that can be better. We need to enable them to come to the table. And I think that the first step for young women is you've got to sort of reject this narrative that you've got to change, reject that story and write a new story where actually you've got everything you need and you're going to change the system so that it suits you and it can help others like you and others who are different from you to progress and to lead. And I think another really important part of that is I think people get really hung up on their confidence. Actually, am I confident enough? I feel really anxious. Yeah, of course you feel anxious. Like, you're operating in a system that wasn't built for you. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to struggle with confidence because you're up against really big odds. And actually forget about confidence. I think nurture conviction. What drives social change and what enables women to lead social change is the conviction that actually this needs to happen. And so I think stop trying to pursue confidence, because confidence is looking at the evidence and saying, yeah, I've got a good shot, I can do this. And the reality is that social change is hard. Actually, you're really taking a sort of risk on quite big odds. And so really it's about, instead of pursuing conviction, actually believing that we need change, that change is essential. And actually, even if you feel low in confidence, you feel anxious, there is no other choice but for you to lead, because actually we have a vacuum of effective leadership. We have a society and a broader global system that needs to be transformed. And actually you are the group to do it. You are the person to do it. So you've got to nurture that conviction that you've got to act. Even if you don't think you can succeed, you've got to act. And it's conviction that will drive that forward and enable you to be transformative.